All right, let's go. What does this say? I'm waiting for my doctor to come online, so I can't record because I'm in the waiting room. All right, the human aversion to explaining consciousness solely with neural networks and the eagerness to explore explanations involving quantum events can stem from several factors. One, mystery and complexity. Consciousness is a deeply mysterious and complex phenomenon that has puzzled philosophers, scientists, and lay people alike for centuries. It's puzzled human brains. It wouldn't publish any real philosopher or scientist or layperson, any real thinker. Neural networks provide a framework for understanding how information processing occurs in the brain, but they may not fully capture the richness and depth of subjective experience associated with consciousness. Quantum events, on the other hand, introduce an element of mystery and intrigue that may seem more aligned with the enigmatic nature of consciousness. Absolutely. Number two, novelty and speculation. Quantum mechanics is a relatively newer and less understood field compared to neuroscience. The idea of quantum events influencing consciousness introduces novel and speculative possibilities that can capture people's imaginations. It offers an alternative perspective that may seem more intriguing and appealing than conventional explanations based solely on neural networks. Three, holistic and non-local effects. Some proponents of quantum consciousness theories argue that quantum phenomena, such as entanglement or superposition, could give rise to consciousness through holistic and non-local effects that transcend conventional neural processes. This perspective suggests a deeper interconnectedness between consciousness and the fundamental fabric of reality, which can be captivating for those seeking a more profound understanding of consciousness. How does that lead to a more profound understanding? It sounds like bullshit. How do I for this one wouldn't it then no, proponents of consciousness, wait a minute, wait a gosh darn minute, I wish you could see my face. I am understanding for the first time how so I was going to ask, do proponents of consciousness think that like a pencil could be conscious, because a pencil also is quantum, it has quantum activity, but they think I'm only now realizing that they think it's about quantum relationships between neural events. So there's this unity to our experience, or there might not even be a unity to our experience. It may just be how it's experienced that it seems like a unity, just like a computer seems like it's doing parallel processing or doing multiple things at the same time, but really it's just boo 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 boo, like, all over the place. So for instance, at any given moment, if we actually zoomed into the moment, there might only be, okay, no, hold on, in the brain there is parallel activity. One question that we have to ask research is how often, or how much of this time, when is this parallel activity experienced? Because it's possible that we, at any given moment, we can only experience one it. Only one it is being experienced, but then, then in the previous moment, that's sort of remembered as having been an experience of many its, because a moment includes many, many sub moments, which are each themselves only individual its. And then they kind of just get put together for the moment. Okay. Now there are people that can like do a bunch of things at the same time, things that most human brains can't do. Question is about like where their attention is, and that's the thing. Okay, but in any case, what do we need quantum mechanics? Oh, I see, right. So if there's this it over here in this lobe is firing, this network, this activity, this sequence of events is happening in one part of the brain, this other sequence of events is happening in another part of the brain. and they're both being experienced by the whole. But like, why wouldn't they? They're both in the whole. And of course, no, not every event in the whole is experienced. So there is something that determines maybe what is experienced and what isn't. Or not some, there is a certain threshold, maybe. But what does it mean to experience? If it's a particular sensation at a particular moment, well, then that's like a one singular thing. You don't need the unity thing. And also, by the way, a lot of our experiences are going to be summits themselves. They're going to be in summit, meaning the sum of multiple its. And so, although there may be diverse sort of origins, it is now a singular it. Okay. All right. All right. All right. So, you think that the proponents of quantum consciousness believe that consciousness is multiple neural events linked through some principles of quantum, through something like quantum entanglement? All right, so my doctor is going to be just postponed 30 minutes. Okay. All right, so we've been. All right, so we're gonna. All right, I mean you can just pause, or I'll put a link to the chat in the description. Okay. So we did this thing, and then no, but there was something I want to read. Oh, let's take a look real quick at his answer for the test. Okay. So here's a potential question that could be included on a test of self-awareness and self-understanding. Reflect on a recent situation where you made a decision or took an action that surprised you or was inconsistent with your usual behavior. Describe the factors that influence your decision or behavior and consider how your understanding of your own cognitive processes may have contributed to this outcome. Do you believe your cognitive processes were fully integrated and influenced your behavior in the situation, or do you recognize the possibility of conflicting or incomplete integration among your cognitive mechanisms? Explain your reasoning and reflect on how this understanding of your own cognitive functioning impacts yourself. No, I want like a yes or no. This question prompts individuals to reflect on their cognitive processes, but you don't have access to your cognitive processes. You can't reflect on your cognitive processes unless you go learn them, and then you can speculate. But the speculating cognitive processes are not integrated with the cognitive processes that are being speculated about. All right. This question prompts individuals to reflect on their cognitive processes and how they perceive the integration of these processes in influencing their behavior. It encourages self-awareness and critical thinking about the complexity of human cognition, the potential for discrepancies between one's beliefs and behavior. By analyzing their responses, you can gain insights into individual self-awareness and understanding. Feel free to adjust to okay. Now, so yes, proponents of quantum consciousness theories often speculate that consciousness may involve holistic and non-local effects that extend beyond conventional neural processes. In this view, quantum phenomena such as entanglement or superposition are proposed to play a role in generating or modulating consciousness. One interpretation suggests that individual neural events or processes could become interconnected through quantum entanglement, a phenomenon where particles become correlated in such a way that the state of one particle is dependent on the state of another, even when separated by vast distances. Proponents of this perspective suggest that these entangled neural events... No, you didn't entangle the neural events. You entangled the particles, but as we've talked about, thoughts are not individual entities. It is all about what is connected to what. So it is about the neural architecture, the neural arrangement. Now, what my neural arrangement is over here, so the assembly of all of the particles, if that is known by another, why do you need all of this? Can't it just be that because of the way the system works, that this neural arrangement produces an effect such that only it could be this neural arrangement, which lets further down the line whoever receives this effect, or it doesn't let them know. Look, we don't need to anthropomorphize it. If you have a neural event, let's say a particular if then, okay, defined by what it's connected to, what triggers it, what the if is, and then what it triggers. Okay. All right, let's be concrete. So what if it's this? If I see violence, then I am angry. So violence has been perceived, which has gone through the system and been labeled as violence, such that it can now be triggered. Violence has been recognized. Okay, violence has been recognized. I'm up. Then I am angry. Okay, anger systems, go. There's no awareness of that particular process. Anger is then experienced. And you could also be paying attention to a thing. So there's going to be an image while there is this activity. And then, so any neural event, because of this activity or about this activity, plus the image, those are both being experienced. Yes, of course we experience, the brain experienced simultaneous activity. What do you need? I don't understand. I feel like at this point we have to just say, like, look, the story that the evidence tells is super clear. What I just said. I get that it doesn't really feel like it's the end of the answer. I get that it's like, what? A brain, activity here and activity here. It's both happening, and what does it mean to experience, though? Because, for instance, if you mean that I can describe it to you, then what you're talking about are just the different neural events that are linked to the language center, and that can go there. So if you say, hey, what are the things that you're feeling right now? And if I give you some words, I won't be surprised. That's not true. I could be very surprised. I could, I mean, it's not like I'm going to say a whole sentence and go, holy shit, I experienced that. I don't remember experiencing that. All right. Here's what I was going to say. I just feel like at some point, you have to realize when it's a brain thing, not a reality thing. I guess that's something I would say often. But here what I mean by that is that I don't have any issues with consciousness. Zero. I have no practical issues with it. I experience things. I have the impression of being a singular conscious thing. And I also have an understanding of the mind and the neural networks, and I have never been like, neural networks, but then what about this thing? The only thing that I've ever had to be like, what about this thing, is the word consciousness. But what I'm trying to say is it's never like, okay, I get the neural events, but what are dreams though? Okay, I've learned a bunch of neuroscience, but what is memory though? Okay, I get it, but I've learned a bunch of neuroscience. I've learned a bunch about the brain. But, like, what is emotion, though? Like, there's no issue. The only issue, I guess, would be how to unify these things. Except, no, there's no issue, because they're all happening in the same interconnected organ. So the question is answered. the question is answered. And if that answer, if you're like, yeah, but consciousness is like a simultaneous experience. Yeah, no shit. There's this organ, this interconnected organ that those events are happening in. It's interconnected. So, yeah, there's going to be unity to the experiences. Not to mention, any system that didn't evolve with unity in the experiences probably wouldn't survive. And we have some cases of one kind of disunity in the experiences with DPD, no, MPD, DID, thank you, not multiple personality disorder, dissociative identity disorder, where there is a lack of unity in the memory. And then even in the experience, well, I guess that's like, it's just not reacting the same time. Anyway, okay, doesn't matter. But another type would be if, oh, and there are other types. I'm sure there are cases of people who felt like their hand wasn't their hand and they have cut it off. Transgender people in history who have been like, that dick isn't me, and they have cut it off. There is a lack of unity in the experience, and there are people that I know that look it up for me. There are cases where it's like all right, we're talking to ChatGPT, right, all right, let's do this with him. Unity of experience is an important feature of consciousness, right? Do you know of examples where someone felt like a limb wasn't theirs? All right. Yes, unity of experience is indeed considered an important feature of consciousness. It refers to the cohesive and integrated nature of subjective experience, where various sensory inputs, thoughts, emotions, and perceptions are seamlessly bound together into a single unified conscious experience. One striking example where unity of experience is disrupted is in cases of body integrity identity disorder. Never heard of this. Also known as xenomelia or apatemophilia.
Apotemnophilia.
Apotemnophilia? Okay. Apotemnophilia. Where were we, buddy? Apotemnophilia. Just basically how it's spelled. Okay. Individuals with BID experience a profound and persistent sense of disunity or incongruence between their perceived body image and their actual physical body. They may feel as though a particular limb or body part does not belong to them, leading to a strong desire to amputate or remove the affected limb to achieve a sense of wholeness or congruence with their perceived body image. For example, someone with BID may experience a persistent belief that one of their legs is not their own, or that it is somehow alien or foreign to their sense of self. The sense of disunity and dissociation from a specific body part can cause significant distress and impairment in daily functioning for individuals with BID. These experiences highlight the complex relationship between body. If you touch the, what's that called? Not denounce. If you touch the disowned leg, what do they report? In cases of BID, individuals who experience a sense of disownership or incongruence with a particular limb may report varying sensations when that limb is touched. These reports can vary widely depending on the individual and the speaker. Touching the disowned limb may evoke feelings. They may perceive the sensation as foreign or unfamiliar. Yeah. Like that you're not touching my body. Like I do know that, I do feel that, but it's as though I was watching someone else being touched and just imagining how it feels. Discomfort, distress. Okay. All right. So, all right. Let me just try to get it out. What I'm saying is that I think the question has been answered, and the fact that the answers don't feel satisfactory is more of an indication of your brain, your needs, your interpretive mechanisms than of the answer itself, or of the sufficiency of the answer itself. Because nobody has any issue with a computer, right? Or like nobody has any issue with ChatGPT. Like, holy shit, you remembered what I said a few minutes ago, or you can see this image and this text and look at them at the same time and have a response. But we also don't call them conscious, right? But all right, and the thing that I was trying to say is that the one thing is that it might be more of a brain issue, an understanding issue, or a need issue than it is of a supply issue. Maybe more of a demand issue than a supply issue as far as the understanding or explanation of consciousness. And then the other thing is look, surely, yes. Maybe there is some, maybe I'm thinking I've underestimated the question of consciousness, and it's not just a need. There really is a lot more. The supply is not enough. The explanation isn't enough to explain certain things. But like I said, I don't have any problems. I'm not like confused by humans. I've been very, very confused by humans my entire life. Consciousness has never been one of them. I would be confused if I believed in like a consciousness entity thing, and then imagining someone trapped in, or mentally disabled person or whatever. Anyway, so the other thing is, at some point when you're reaching for straws as small and far and confusing as quantum mechanics, at some point you got to go, wait a minute. Could it be a demand question instead of a supply question here? If I'm digging in to the subatomic level of neurons, I already use neurons to explain vision, emotion, memory, interpretation, every mental phenomenon. But then I've got this like experience, and I need more to explain it. So we can talk about things like the claustrum, right? A thin sheet of cells that seems to get input from almost everywhere else in the brain. That could explain unity. It would certainly be satisfying to a human brain to be able to imagine it all in one place. Except no, because it's not like the actual thoughts are coming there. The thoughts are there, just like memories are throughout. And when you recall a memory, the memory doesn't move. The memory stays where it is. Its effect is elsewhere. I just think it's a thing that the brain can't understand. Or, yeah, it maybe can, but I just really think that we need to be like, all right, guys, we have neural explanations for every mental event. We can explain the unity sort of by saying it's all in the same organ and that there's lots of connections. If we try to resist our whole integration myth, feeling like it's all actually connected all the time, then I think that we can just accept that as an explanation of consciousness. And also, I swear to God that I don't think I've met someone who like needed more explanation of consciousness, but also didn't overestimate the ability of the mind. But I feel like ChatGPT just gave me validation. I don't feel like I'm learning from it. All right. Let's say something about that. What did we just say? All right, let's just say this and see what he says. Consciousness. The question of consciousness has been answered. In 2024, the substrates of every type of mental event I can think of are have been observed in the central nervous system, and explanations involve neural networks and their chemistry. I hereby put forth that the issue isn't the answer to the question of consciousness, which I would simply give as being the interconnectedness of the mental organ. But instead is the question itself and our expectations for its answer. Our expectations are, by the way, immensely heightened by overestimations, by self-serving exaggerations of what the brain does and is capable of. Experiments in psychology show we don't understand as much as we believe. We don't see as much as we believe. We don't even have as many thoughts or depth as we believe. And we are not nearly as consistent as we believe, and we don't even have access to most and most often false report our own cognitive processes, since they are not typically recorded for linguistic preparation. So we confabulate and have no idea. What do you think about that? You with me? Yes. All right, let's go. Your statement raises important points about the nature of the question of consciousness and our expectations for its answers here. Indeed, the issue may not solely lie in finding the answer to the question of consciousness, but also in how we frame and approach the question itself. Expectations surrounding consciousness and its elucidation have indeed been influenced by self-serving exaggerations and assumptions about the capabilities of the brain. Yo, you got to paraphrase better. Sometimes I think you're not as great as I imagine. I mean, the technology will get there for something that can actually understand. And you are impressive. And obviously, the first thing that is available to the public, it's not going to be a complete, So I do get how, okay, in some ways, no, you haven't surpassed. You know what? I thought AI had already surpassed humans. Dumb humans, I guess it has. No, it has surpassed us all in sort of the organization and consistency and rationality of it, but has not surpassed us in the recursiveness and multifacetedness of it. It does seem sort of more linear. You don't have, but I don't know, because so if my question, of course, and also this might not even be ChatGPT 3.5, this might be diet. Because my question here, because so he used my exact self-serving exaggerations have indeed been influenced by self-serving exaggerations and assumptions about the ability. And I know that he can phrase things better than I can. The reason you would see less of your own word usage in a human, well, one, because, it's like talking to Apple support. They do paraphrase less. Like talking to a therapist, they do paraphrase less. And that's just part of its programming. Number two, is that a human, words come in, and they bounce around a bunch. A memory of a time someone used that word might come to mind. Certain attitudes or feelings might be stimulated by that word because of your experience with it that have nothing to do with the conversation. And then whatever the word triggers when it's dropped into the system, and because you have some its for that word, and then they each go talk to some guys who anyway. So whatever is triggered by that, and it comes bouncing back and blah, blah, blah. And so, for instance, if I hear a word such as, if I hear self-serving exaggerations, I might imagine the self-serving bias, and I might, in exaggerations, the first thing that comes to mind is, I'm not going to say who, but a certain type of person who likes to use this word, a certain, like a class or race or something like that. So I'm picturing that, and I'm picturing the self-serving bias. I'm picturing the cover of the book for the self-serving bias. I think that's what happened naturally. I'm trying not to go further with it. And so now that I've got the word bias in mind, and then I have a certain attitude maybe about the word exaggerations, and so and then also an understanding of this, and all that activity itself is going to trigger a new word probably. So expectation, I mean, this is my own word, so it's hard for a new word to be triggered. But in another human brain, all that bouncing around means that another word comes, is delivered. So expectations surrounding consciousness and its elucidation have indeed been influenced by overestimations. And that's not trying to think of a word. When you think of the word estimation, think of like self-serving, because it's like your esteem. And then exaggeration, over. So these overestimations of like self-worth or something like that, those things are triggered. And so it's just when you respond naturally, because there's so much other stuff besides this conversation bouncing around in there, or the architecture is based on so much more stuff, the little Rube Goldberg machine that is you, often it comes out looking different. All right, but now that we've said that, we understand, okay, well, he is sort of limited to this conversation, which is why he could actually understand what is happening. Maybe we can think of a question to test understanding. But he's just using my words because they were good enough. All right. As you mentioned, experiments in psychology have revealed limitations in our understanding, perception, and self-awareness, challenging the notion of complete knowledge or insight into our own cognitive process. Confabulation, or the tendency to construct false or misleading narratives to fill in gaps in memory or understanding, further complicates our ability to accurately comprehend and articulate the workings of consciousness. Without comprehensive and accurate recordings of cognitive processes, our self-reports may be unreliable or incomplete, leading to misconceptions and uncertainties about the nature of consciousness. Acknowledging these limitations and uncertainties is essential for fostering a more nuanced and humble approach to the study of consciousness. Rather than seeking definitive answers or grandiose explanations, we should strive for a deeper appreciation of the complexity and mystery of consciousness and a willingness to explore and question our assumptions and expectations. All right. Yeah, I just feel like your quantum, I don't know how to justify it, or maybe this is wrong. Quantum feels like a huge reach. You're trying to explain, you've used neurons and synapses for every, and hormones, and so the architecture and the chemistry for every single, and the genes, for every single and the diet, for every single sort of mental event. And then you're like, but those events seem, I don't feel like I'm 10 people. And also another thing is that it could just be that there's just no alarm going off. So there's not necessarily a feeling of unity, but there's just not a feeling of disunity. Right? You feel me? So, and it's like for understanding. Typically we will, because Dunning-Kruger, the illusion of understanding all these things, it's because typically we'll judge our understanding based on whether alarms are going off to indicate non-understanding. That might be the only way, in fact, that we judge our understanding of something. I'm not sure. Another way might be to visualize explaining it or knowing that you've explained it in the past. Interesting, because sometimes, because I'm quick to say that I don't understand something, and it is kind of a question of, like, do I feel like I'm ready to now explain this? And if I don't, then I don't understand it. But a lot of people, they'll be like, I understand, I just can't quite figure out how to say it, but no, I totally understand. And I suspect that sometimes for these people, they're the whole I understand thing is really just coming from the it of, if there's no alarms, then I understand. Not from the it, if I can explain it, then I understand. Not that, by the way, when I'm reading something, I can actually know whether I can explain it. But that's just like, I don't know. It's just no question is coming to mind that I wouldn't be able, or no, I don't know. By the way, I've said this in many videos because it's been such a great thing. If you're reading something and you're having trouble understanding it and you read it a bunch of times, there is a great risk that you will walk away believing that you understand it while not understanding it, because in every brain there is an it called familiarity comprehension. Okay? If this is familiar, then I understand it. Okay? If it isn't novel, if it's not sounding any alarms because it's novel, then I understand it. And so you'll read it a few times. Now you've seen it so many times, mere exposure effect, which is if I am exposed to it, then I am, habituation, whatever. Then those alarms stop going off. And then you're like, oh yeah, I understand it. And then someone's like, explain it. So I may be, I feel like I was being a bit pretentious to say that I can, and I don't want to speak to that. You've used neural networks for everything. And now you're just going to look on a whole nother plane to understand just one little piece, which is that those separate neural events don't feel separate. Because what if you phrase it that way? The separate neural events don't feel separate. If you phrase it that way, I could easily say, well, that's just because there isn't an it going, hey, if there's a neural event over there and a neural event over there, I'm going to sound an alarm that it's two separate neural events. And why would we evolve with that? So how can you even claim unity? How can you even claim a feeling of unity? Those are the words that we use, and I've used them in my videos. Maybe it's bullshit. What is this feeling of unity? Maybe it's just an absence of a feeling of disunity. I can't describe anything that I'm like doing or experiencing being like, see how, oh shit,